welcome. There is nothing you need to do now. You have arrived at the one place in your day where effort is not required, where nothing is expected of you, where the only task is to slowly, gently stop. Let your body grow heavy against whatever is holding it. Feel the weight of your shoulders finally allowed to fall. Feel the small muscles around your eyes let go of their long day of watching. You do not have to listen closely. You do not have to remember any of this. The words are only here to keep you company while you drift, like a low light left on in another room. Tonight, we are going to sit with an old idea. It is more than 2,000 years old, and it comes from a man the world remembers as Lao Tzu, the old master, who is said to have written a small book about the way things move when we stop pushing them. The book is called the Tao Te Ching. But you do not need to hold on to any names, you do not need to keep track. If your mind wanders off in the middle of a sentence and forgets to come back, that is not a failure. That is the whole purpose. That is you arriving where you were trying to go. We are going to move slowly, the way water moves. We are going to circle one simple truth for a long time, from many gentle angles, until it stops being a thought and becomes a kind of rest. So loosen your jaw. Let your tongue fall away from the roof of your mouth. Let this next breath be a little slower than the last. And let us begin without hurry, without effort, without trying at all. Chapter 1. The day that would not bend. Think for a moment about the day you are leaving behind, not to relive it, only to set it down. Somewhere in that day there was a moment when you pushed against something that would not move. Perhaps it was a task that refused to be finished. Perhaps it was a person who would not understand you, no matter how carefully you chose your words. Perhaps it was your own mind, circling the same worry again and again, and no amount of effort could make it be quiet. We are taught from the very beginning that the answer to a wall is to push harder. If the door will not open, lean into it. If the work is not done, work longer. If the feeling will not leave, fight it. We carry this instruction into everything, and for a while it seems to be true, because sometimes the wall does move, and we learn to believe that it moved because we pushed. But you know the other kind of day. The day when every push made the wall push back. When trying to sleep kept you awake. When trying to relax made you tense. When reaching for the word made the word disappear. On that kind of day, effort turned against you. The harder you worked, the further away the thing you wanted seemed to go. The old master noticed this. He watched people strive and grasp and force, and he watched how often the striving created the very trouble they were trying to escape, and he began to wonder whether there was another way to move through the world. Not laziness, not giving up, something quieter and stranger than either. A way of acting that did not fight the grain of things, but followed it. Tonight, we are going to look for that way, but not by trying. We will find it, if we find it at all, by slowly stopping. Chapter 2. The tired hands that cannot let go. There is a particular kind of tiredness that sleep alone does not cure. It is the tiredness of holding. All day, the hands are closed. They hold the plan, the worry, the list of things that must not be forgotten. They hold the version of you that other people expect. They hold the outcome you have decided you must reach. And even now, lying still, the hands do not fully open. Somewhere in you, something is still gripping. Notice it without judgment. There is nothing wrong with you for holding on. You learned to hold because holding once kept you safe. A grip is a kind of hope. We clench around the things we are afraid to lose. But a grip held too long stops being strength and becomes only pain. And the strange truth is that most of what we grip so tightly cannot be held at all. The day cannot be held. The outcome cannot be held. The love of another person cannot be gripped into staying. These things move like water, and the tighter we close our hands, the more of them runs out between our fingers. The old master said that the stiff and hard are companions of death, and the soft and yielding are companions of life. He was thinking of exactly this. A living branch bends in the wind and survives the storm. A dead branch is rigid, and the same wind that the living branch rode so easily snaps the dead one in two. All night the wind of your thoughts will move through you. You do not have to be the branch that breaks. You can be the one that bends, that lets the wind pass through, that is still there in the morning precisely because it did not resist. So let this be the first small release. Not of everything, only of the fingers. Let your hands, wherever they are, grow soft. Let them be the hands of someone who has finished, who has set the day down on a low table and walked quietly away from it. There will be time tomorrow to pick up whatever truly needs picking up. For now, there is nothing in your hands. There is nothing you must hold. You are allowed, at last, to let go. Chapter 3. A word for what you keep doing wrong. In the old language of the Tao Te Ching, there is a phrase that has no easy translation. It is written Wu Wei. The first word means not or without. The second means doing or effort or striving. Put together, they seem to say not doing or non-action. And for a long time, people misunderstood it. They thought it meant to do nothing at all, to lie down in the road of life and refuse to move. But that is not what the old master meant. And you already know this in your body, even if you have never heard the phrase before. Wu Wei does not mean doing nothing. It means doing without forcing. It means acting so completely in harmony with the moment that the action feels like it does itself. It is the difference between swimming against the current until your arms fail and turning to let the current carry you where it was already going to take you. Think of the times you have felt it. The conversation that flowed so easily you forgot to be nervous. The work that took you so completely that hours passed like minutes and you looked up surprised. The walk where your feet found their own rhythm and your thoughts untied themselves without your help. In those moments, you were not lazy. You were, if anything, more alive than usual. But you were not forcing. The effort had dissolved into the doing, and what was left was something that felt almost like being carried. This is what the old master was pointing toward. Not the collapse of effort, but its ripening. A way of moving through the world that spends itself only where spending helps and stays soft everywhere else. The gardener does not pull the plant to make it grow taller. The gardener waters and waits and lets the growing be the plant's own work. Wu Wei is the wisdom of knowing which is which. What is yours to do and what is only yours to allow. Tonight, you have nothing to do, which means tonight is made entirely of the second kind of thing, the kind you allow. Sleep is the purest Wu Wei there is. No one has ever fallen asleep by trying. It comes only when the trying stops. Chapter 4. The man who wrote nothing down. Almost nothing certain is known about Lao Tzu, and there is something fitting in that. A man who taught the power of the small, the hidden, and the unforced, left behind almost no trace of himself, and even his name is less a name than a title. Lao Tzu means, more or less, the old master or the old child. History cannot agree on when he lived, or whether he was one person or many, or whether he existed at all. He slips through the fingers of those who try to hold him, exactly as his teaching says all things do. The story that has come down to us is quiet, like everything about him. It is said that he served for many years as a keeper of records in the archives of an old kingdom, a librarian of sorts, a man who spent his life among the writings of others without any hunger to add his own. He watched the court grow corrupt. He watched ambition rise and rulers grasp for more and lose what they had. And in time, the story says, he grew tired of a world that had forgotten how to leave things alone. So he climbed onto the back of a water buffalo and rode west toward the mountains, meaning to disappear. At the western gate of the kingdom, a guard recognized him and begged him not to leave without setting down what he knew. And so, reluctantly, the old master stopped. He wrote a small book, 81 short chapters, only a few thousand words in all, plain as water and just as deep. Then he handed it to the guard, passed through the gate, and was never seen again. Whether any of this is true, no one can say. But the shape of the story teaches as clearly as the book does. Here was a man who did not push, did not build monuments, did not gather followers or shout in the marketplace. He kept the low place. He did his work quietly and let it be. And when it was time to go, he went, without a fight, without a backward glance, folding himself back into the mountains like a stream returning to the sea. You do not need to be remembered to have lived well. You do not need to be seen to be real. The old master rode west into the fog, and something in what he left behind still reaches you, all these centuries later, in the dark, as you lie here letting go. Chapter 5. The Way That Cannot Be Named. The very first lines of the old book are a kind of warning. The way that can be spoken is not the eternal way. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. Before he tells you anything, the old master admits that the thing he is pointing at cannot really be put into words at all. This might sound discouraging, but tonight it is a comfort. It means you are excused from understanding. It means there is nothing here you must grasp with your mind, because the mind is not the tool for this. You cannot think your way to the way. You can only slowly soften into it. The word he uses is Tao, which simply means the way, or the road, or the flow of how things move when nothing interferes. It is the current under all the currents, the pattern the water follows when no one is telling it where to go. He compares it, again and again, to things that are humble and easily overlooked. An empty valley, a patient river, the dark space inside a bowl that makes the bowl useful. He does this on purpose. He wants to pull your attention away from the loud and the striving and toward the quiet and the yielding, because the way, he says, is far more like the valley than the mountain, far more like the water than the stone. And here is the gift for a mind that is tired of trying. You do not have to define it to be inside it. The fish does not understand the sea, and the sea holds it perfectly well. You do not have to name what is carrying you tonight. You only have to stop struggling long enough to feel that something is. Let the need to understand grow quiet. Let the words become a sound more than a meaning. There is a current beneath you. It knew where it was going long before you were born. You can let it carry you now. Chapter 6. Unquote. Water finds the low places. Of all the images in the old book, the one the master returns to most often is water. He seems almost in love with it. The highest good, he says, is like water, because water benefits all things and does not compete. It nourishes everything it touches and asks for nothing in return. And then he adds the line that turns the whole ordinary world upside down. Water settles in the low places that people disdain. And that, he says, is why it is close to the way. We spend our lives trying to rise, up the ladder, up the ranks, up above the others where we imagine we will finally be safe. We are taught that low is a kind of failure, that to be beneath is to be less. But water teaches the opposite. Water always seeks the lowest ground, and by seeking the lowest ground, it gathers. Every stream runs downhill, and because the sea lies lower than all the rivers run to it. The sea becomes great not by climbing, but by descending, not by grasping, but by receiving, not by being above, but by being willing to lie below. There is a deep rest in this that is hard to find anywhere else. If you no longer have to rise, you no longer have to strain. If the low place is not shameful but wise, then you may finally stop climbing. Tonight, you are allowed to seek the lowest ground, to sink, to let yourself settle the way water settles, finding by feel the place where you can go no lower and coming to rest there completely. Feel your body doing exactly this. Feel the parts of you that are still slightly lifted, still slightly braced, and let them descend. Let your weight pour downward like water finding its level. There is nothing beneath you to fear. The low place is where everything gathers. The low place is where the tired rivers finally rest. Let yourself go down into it, soft and unhurried, and be received. Chapter 7. The softest thing in the world. The softest thing in the world, the old book says, overcomes the hardest thing in the world. When you first hear it, it sounds like a riddle or a hope or a pretty thing to say that could not possibly be true. The hard wins. Everyone knows the hard wins. The hammer breaks the stone. The strong arm bends the weak one. This is the plain arithmetic of the world. And yet, consider what water does to stone. Given time, not in a single blow, which would do nothing, but in 10,000 patient arrivals. The stream that seems to yield to every rock in its path is slowly carving the canyon. The dripping that a stone could ignore for a day wears the stone hollow across the years. The soft thing wins, but it wins by a different clock, and it wins by never fighting. It does not try to be harder than the stone. It simply keeps coming, keeps flowing, keeps arriving, and lets its softness be a kind of endless patience that the hard thing cannot match. There is a lesson here for everything in you that has been trying to force a result by tonight, by tomorrow, by the deadline your fear has set. Most of what matters cannot be forced on that clock. It can only be watered and waited for. The healing of a grief, the mending of a bond, the slow change of a habit, the learning of a skill. You cannot hammer these into being. You can only return to them, softly, again and again, and let the returning do its quiet work. So release the hard timeline, release the demand that it all be finished, fixed, resolved before you are allowed to rest. The water does not resolve the canyon in a night, and it is not anxious. It trusts its own softness. It trusts the long, patient arithmetic of arriving and arriving and arriving. You can trust it too. Whatever you are wearing slowly smooth, you may set it down tonight and let the water keep working while you sleep. Chapter 8. What the empty cup holds. We treat emptiness as a lack, a hole, a thing to be filled as quickly as possible. An empty calendar makes us nervous. An empty room feels unfinished. An empty moment sends our hand reaching for something, anything, to pour into it. But the old master looked at emptiness and saw not a lack, but a use. The very thing that makes a vessel useful, he noticed, is the empty space inside it. He gives 3 plain examples, and they are worth turning over slowly in the dark. Clay is shaped into a pot, he says, but it is the hollow inside that holds the water. So it is the emptiness that we use. Doors and windows are cut into a house, but it is the empty openings that let us pass through and let the light come in. So again, it is the emptiness that serves. We think we value the clay and the walls, the solid and the substantial, but what we actually use every time is the space they make room for. Sit with that for a moment as your breathing slows. Perhaps the empty places in your own life are not failures to be corrected. Perhaps the quiet hour, the unscheduled evening, the pause between one thing and the next are not gaps in a life, but the very openings through which the life can breathe. A day packed solid from edge to edge is like a cup filled to the brim with clay. It looks full, but it can hold nothing, and nothing can move through it. This night, is an emptiness. That is its gift. It is the hollow in the vessel of your weak, the open window in the wall of your effort. You do not need to fill it. You do not need to make it productive or meaningful or complete. You only need to let it be empty and to rest inside that emptiness the way water rests inside a bowl, held quietly by the very space you were once afraid of. Let the emptiness of this hour hold you now. Chapter 9. The Wheel and its Hollow Center. Stay with the emptiness a little longer, because the old master was not finished with it. He points to a wheel, the kind that once carried carts along the old roads. 30 spokes, he says, meet at a single hub, and it is the hole at the center of the hub, the empty place where the axle passes through, that lets the wheel turn. Take away the emptiness at the center, and the wheel becomes a solid disc that cannot roll. The whole use of the wheel depends on a nothing at its heart. There is a nothing at your center too. Not an absence in the sad sense, but a still point around which your whole life turns. All day the spokes of you reach outward, toward tasks and people and worries, 30 directions at once, each one pulling, but they all meet somewhere. There is a place in you that does not move, that has never moved, that was quiet before the day began and will be quiet after it ends. The breath finds it, the long, slow breath, going in and going out, keeps circling that still center like spokes around a hub. You do not have to build this still place. It is already there. It is there underneath the noise, the way the hub is there underneath the spinning rim. All you have to do is stop mistaking the rim for the whole wheel. The thoughts are the rim racing around the outside. But you are not only the racing rim, you are also the quiet center it races around, and that center is not tired because it never ran anywhere. It only held still and let the turning happen. Rest there now. Let your attention sink from the spinning edge of your thoughts toward the motionless middle. Feel how the breath keeps returning to it, in and out, each cycle a spoke passing through the still hub of you. The wheel of the day is slowing. Soon it will stop turning altogether. And the empty center, which never needed the turning in the first place, will simply go on being quiet, holding you, as it always has. Chapter 10. Doing by not doing. The old book contains a line that has puzzled and delighted people for centuries. The way does nothing, it says, and yet nothing is left undone. It sounds like a paradox, a trick of words. How can nothing be done and everything still get done? But it is not a trick. It is a description of how the deepest things actually work once you stop insisting that all doing must look like effort. Consider the sun. It does not strain to shine. It does not push its light onto the fields or force the wheat to ripen. It simply shines, being fully what it is, and the entire living world arranges itself around that shining. The seasons turn, the crops grow, the ice melts, and the rivers run, and the sun has, in a sense, done nothing but be itself. Its doing and its being are the same thing. There is no gap between them where effort could squeeze in. Or consider your own heart beating quietly in your chest right now. You are not making it beat. you have never once made it beat. It does its enormous work, 10,000 times an hour, without your effort, without your attention, without a single instruction from your will. If the beating of your heart depended on your trying, you would have died long ago from exhaustion or forgetting. The most essential doing in you is a doing you do not do. It happens through you, not by you. This is what the old master trusted, that beneath all our frantic effort there is a vast, competent doing that needs no manager, no worrier, no one straining at the controls. The body heals its own wounds while you sleep. The mind sorts its own day while you dream. The world turns without your permission. Tonight, you can hand the work back to the doing that was always doing it. You can let your hands fall open and trust that nothing essential will stop just because you have stopped holding it. Nothing is left undone. Even now, as you do nothing, so much is quietly being done. Chapter 11. The river does not hurry. Watch a river in your mind for a moment. A wide, slow river moving through flat country toward the sea. It is in no hurry, and yet it is never late. It does not thrash or strain. It does not try to reach the ocean faster than the land allows. It simply moves at the speed the whole landscape gives it, curving where the ground curves, pooling where the ground dips. And by never hurrying, it arrives, without fail, exactly where it was always going. We have lost this. We have come to believe that speed is a virtue in itself, that to move faster is to live better, that the person who arrives first has somehow won. And so we hurry through the very things we say we love. We hurry through meals we cannot taste, through days we will not remember, through years that blur together because we were always leaning forward into the next one. Hurry is a kind of violence we do to time, and time, like water, does not respond well to being forced. The old master watched the natural world and saw that nothing worthwhile in it hurries. The tree does not rush its rings. The fruit does not ripen ahead of its season, no matter how badly you want it. The night does not hurry toward the dawn. And you, tonight, do not have to hurry toward sleep. That is the last hurry to release, and the hardest, because you can feel how much you want the rest, and the wanting makes you reach, and the reaching keeps you awake. So let sleep be a river, not a destination. Let it come at the speed the whole quiet landscape of your body gives it. You are not late. There is nowhere you must arrive by a certain hour. The river of this night is carrying you toward rest at exactly the pace it should, curving where it curves, slowing where it slows. Stop leaning forward. Lie back into the current. It has never once failed to reach the sea. Chapter 12. When force creates its opposite. There is a strange law, the old master noticed, and once you see it, you cannot stop seeing it. Force, pushed past its natural limit, turns into its own opposite. The thing you grip too hard, you lose. The peace you demand, you drive away. The love you try to force, you kill. Whenever we push too far, the world seems to have a way of handing us the reverse of what we wanted. He put it plainly. Those who stand on tiptoe do not stand firmly. Those who rush ahead do not go far. The tiptoe is such a perfect little image of overreaching. You stretch upward to be taller, to see further, to see more than you are, and in the very act of stretching, you become unsteady, and you cannot hold the pose, and you come down lower than if you had simply stood as you were. The extra reach costs you the ground beneath your feet. You have felt this law all your life without naming it. The harder you try to impress, the more forced you seem. The more desperately you chase sleep, the more it flees. The tighter you squeeze the wet bar of soap, the faster it shoots from your hand. The world resists the overreaching grip. It rewards instead the open hand, the natural stance, the effort that stops at the point where effort still helps and does not push one step past it into strain. So notice, gently, wherever you are standing on tiptoe in your life, wherever you are reaching past your natural height, straining to be more, to control more, to secure more than can be secured. And let your heels come back down to the earth. You do not have to hold the impossible pose. You are allowed to stand at your own true height and see only as far as that lets you see. It is enough. It was always enough. Come down off your toes and rest your whole weight on the ground that is actually there. Chapter 13. The tree that was saved by being useless. Long after the old master, there came another teacher in the same tradition, a playful and dreaming man named Zhuangzi, who loved to tell strange little stories that turn the mind sideways until it relaxes. One of his stories is about a tree, and it is a good one to hear as you are drifting. A carpenter was walking with his apprentice when they passed an enormous old oak, so wide that hundreds of oxen could shelter in its shade, so tall its highest branches seemed to brush the clouds. The apprentice stopped, amazed, but the master carpenter walked on without a glance. Later the apprentice asked why he had not even paused to look at such a magnificent tree. "Because it is useless," the carpenter said. "Its wood is knotted and twisted. Make a boat from it, and the boat sinks. Make a coffin, and the coffin rots. Make a beam, and the beam cracks. It is good for nothing, and that is why it has grown so old and so great." That night, the story says, the tree spoke to the carpenter in a dream. "You compare me to your useful trees," it said, "the fruit trees and timber trees. But look what their usefulness earns them. They are stripped and broken and cut down in their prime precisely because they are useful. Their gifts are the reason for their early death. I have spent my whole long life learning to be of no use to anyone, and that uselessness is exactly what has let me become what I am. What you call useless has protected me. What you call worthless has kept me whole. There is a rest in this for anyone who has spent their life being useful, who has been valued mostly for what they produce and has come to feel that their worth must be earned again each day through effort and output and use. Tonight, you are of no use to anyone, and that is not a failure. It is a kind of freedom. You are not a timber tree tonight. You are the great useless oak, standing quietly in the dark, growing old and whole in the shelter of your own unproductive peace. Let yourself be worth nothing for a few hours. It is how the oldest trees survive. Chapter 14. The Butterfly and the Dream. Here is the most famous of all the dreaming teacher's stories, and it is almost nothing, just a handful of words, but it has kept people company in the dark for 2,000 years. Once, Zhuangzi said, I dreamed I was a butterfly. I fluttered here and there on the breeze, doing as I pleased, knowing nothing of any Zhuangzi. I was simply a butterfly, entirely and happily a butterfly. Then I woke, and there I was, solid and unmistakable, myself again. But now, he said, I do not know. Was I a man dreaming that I was a butterfly? Or am I now a butterfly dreaming that I am a man? He did not answer the question. That was the whole point. He let it hang there, softly, unresolved, like a thing floating on water. You might think a story with no answer would leave the mind restless, but notice how it does the opposite. It loosens something. It takes the hard boundary between what is real and what is dreamed, and it makes that boundary gentle and porous, the way it becomes exactly at this hour, when you are neither fully awake nor fully asleep, when the room and the images behind your eyes are beginning to trade places. You do not have to know which is which. The butterfly did not know, and it fluttered here and there on the breeze, doing as it pleased, perfectly content in its not knowing. Let yourself enter that same soft uncertainty now. In a little while, you will not be sure whether the voice you are hearing is out here in the room or in there among your dreams. You will not be sure whether the thought that just drifted by was yours or the beginning of a dream thinking itself. That blurring is not a problem to be solved. It is the doorway. Pass through it the way the butterfly passes from flower to flower, weightless, aimless, content, doing as you please, knowing nothing of any effort, any hour, any self that has to hold it all together. Chapter 15. The Cook and the Ox. There is one more story from the dreaming teacher to carry you deeper, and it is about a cook, a humble man doing humble work, who happened to understand the whole secret of effortless action better than any king or scholar. A ruler was watching his cook cut apart an ox, and he was astonished. The man's hands moved like a dance. The blade slid through the great body without catching, without hacking, with a sound almost like music, and never once did the cook seem to strain or force. The ruler asked how such skill was possible, and the cook set down his knife and explained. When I first began, he said, I saw nothing but the whole ox, a solid mass to be attacked. After 3 years, I no longer saw the whole ox, only its parts. But now I do not look with my eyes at all. I move by feel, by spirit. I follow the natural openings, the hollows between the joints, the spaces that are already there in the way the animal is made. I do not cut through bone because I do not try to. I let the blade find the gaps that ask for no force. and I pass through them. A poor cook hacks and ruins his knife in a month. A good cook cuts and dulls his knife in a year. I have used this same blade for 19 years, and it is as sharp as the day it was ground, because it has never once struck what it did not have to strike. Hear what he is saying, softly as you lie here. The world is full of natural openings, gaps where no force is needed, paths that are already there in the way things are made. Most of our exhaustion comes from hacking at the bone, from forcing our way through where there was never meant to be a way, from meeting every task as a solid mass to be attacked. But there is another way to move, the cook's way, the way of feeling for the hollows and passing through them, spending no effort where no effort is required. Tonight, find the gap. Sleep is a natural opening in the day, a place where no force is needed. Do not hack at it. Let the blade of your tired attention find the hollow that is already there, and slide through it without striking anything at all. Chapter 16. The Value of the Unfinished. There is a quiet anxiety that keeps many people awake, and it has to do with things left undone. The unanswered message, the unfinished task, the conversation not completed, the project not closed, the 100 small loose threads of a life that never quite ties itself off before the lights go out. We lie down, and the mind runs its list of the incomplete, and each item is a small hook that will not let us sink. But the old master would gently question whether completion is even the good thing we imagine it to be. Great fullness, he says, seems empty, yet its use is never exhausted. Great straightness seems bent. Great skill seems clumsy. He had a fondness for things that were not polished to a perfect finish, because he saw that the perfectly finished thing is also the dead thing, the closed thing, the thing with no room left in it to grow or breathe or become. A life is not a task to be completed. It is a river, and a river is never finished, and its unfinishedness is not a flaw, but the very sign that it is still alive. The day you complete everything, tie off every thread, answer every message, close every loop, resolve every open question, would not be a triumph. It would be a kind of ending. The loose threads are the places where tomorrow can still enter. The unfinished is where the life is still living. So let the undone things be undone tonight, not as a failure of the day, but as its openness to the next one. You are allowed to fall asleep in the middle. In the middle of the task, the thought, the story, this very sentence, nature does. The season does not finish before it rests into the next. The day does not tie off its loose ends before it lets the night come. It simply stops, unfinished and alive, and trusts the morning to take up the thread. You may do the same. Set down the unfinished day exactly as it is, ragged and open and breathing, and let yourself stop in the middle where all living things rest. Chapter 17. Knowing when to stop. The old master had a great respect for the art of stopping, which he considered far rarer and far harder than the art of starting. Anyone can begin. The world is full of beginning, full of reaching and adding and acquiring. But to know the point at which enough has been done, and to stop there cleanly, without grasping for the little bit more that ruins everything, is a wisdom almost no one has. Fill a vessel to the brim, he says, and it will spill. Sharpen a blade to its keenest, and the edge will not last. Hoard a room full of gold and jade, and no one can guard it. In each case, the trouble comes not from the thing itself, but from the failure to stop, from pushing 1 degree past the point of enough into the territory of too much. The overfilled cup, the over-sharpened knife, the overstuffed vault, each is a small tragedy of not knowing when to stop. You know this in your own body tonight. There is a point of tiredness that is sweet and soft and ready for sleep. And there is a point beyond it, if you push too long, where you become wired and brittle and wide awake, having sharpened your exhaustion past its useful edge. The whole day is like this. The meal enjoyed to satisfaction, and the meal pushed one course too far. The work done well, and the work done past the point where more only makes it worse. To know when to stop is to save yourself from the ruin that lives just past enough. And so the deepest permission of this hour is the permission to stop, not to do one more thing, not to think one more thought through to its end, not to solve one more problem before you are allowed to rest. You have done enough today, truly enough. The vessel is full. To add more now would only spill it. Set down the day at the point of enough, cleanly, without reaching for the ruinous little bit more, and let the stopping itself be the last soft thing you do. Chapter 18. The sage wears rough cloth. The wise ones in the old book are never grand. This is one of the most striking things about the whole teaching. The sage does not glitter. The sage does not stand on a stage or wear fine robes or announce their wisdom to the crowd. The sage, the old master says, wears rough cloth but carries jade within. On the outside, plain, ordinary, easily overlooked. On the inside, quietly holding something precious. We are trained to do the reverse, to polish the outside, to display our worth, to make sure the world can see at a glance how much we know and how much we have done. We wear our accomplishments where they can be counted, and this display is exhausting because it must be maintained endlessly against the fear that if we ever stopped shining, the world would decide we were worthless after all. But the sage has set that fear down. The sage does not need to be seen as wise, and so is free of the labor of seeming. The jade is carried within, where it does not have to be defended or displayed or proven to anyone. It is simply there, quietly, whether or not a single other person ever knows. There is an enormous rest in this, to no longer have to perform your value, to let the outside be plain and tired and ordinary, and to trust that what is precious in you does not depend on being seen. Tonight, there is no one to perform for. The rough cloth is enough. You do not have to be impressive in the dark. You do not have to carry yourself, even to yourself, as someone who has earned their rest through visible achievement. Let the display fall away with the light. Let yourself be plain and unremarkable and completely at peace. An ordinary, tired person in an ordinary, dark room, carrying quietly within you, as you always have, something that needs no witness to be real. Chapter 19. The strength of staying low. Return with me once more to the low places, because the old master keeps returning to them, and there is a reason. Why is the sea the king of 100 streams? He asks. Because it lies below them. That is its only secret. It does not command the rivers to come. It does not climb up to gather them. It simply stays low, lower than all of them. And by staying low, it becomes the place they all flow toward. There is a strength in lowness that the world almost never teaches. We are taught that to lead is to rise above, to get on top, to be the highest. But the old master saw that the truest gathering happens at the bottom, not the top, and that the one who is willing to be beneath is the one to whom everything eventually comes. The valley holds more water than the peak. The humble ground receives what the proud height cannot keep. This is not weakness, and it is not defeat. It is a different kind of power entirely, a receptive power, a gathering power, the power of the open, low place that does not have to grasp, because things flow to it on their own. The proud spend their strength climbing and defending the height. The humble spend nothing and receive everything, because they have made themselves into the place where the water wants to go. Feel yourself becoming that low place now. You have spent the day, perhaps, holding yourself up, keeping your position, staying on top of it all. That holding up is over now. Let yourself sink beneath the effort of the day, the way the sea lies beneath the rivers. You do not have to be above anything tonight. You do not have to rise or lead or hold the high ground. Sink to the lowest, most receptive place in yourself, and let the quiet of the whole night flow down into you, gathering there, filling you not because you reached for it, but because you were low enough, at last, to receive it. Chapter 20. Yielding as a kind of power. The old master watched the storms, and he learned something from watching what survived them. The great rigid trees, proud and strong, the ones that would not bend, were the ones the wind tore down. And the soft grasses, the supple reeds, the willows that bowed all the way to the ground before the gale, rose again unharmed when the wind had passed. The rigid broke, the yielding survived. And from this he drew a law that runs through the whole book. To yield is not to lose. To yield is how the living endure. We hear the word yield and we flinch because we have been taught it means surrender, means weakness, means letting the world have its way with us. But the reed does not surrender when it bends. The reed is doing something far cleverer than the oak. The reed is letting the force pass through and over it, spending nothing to resist what cannot be resisted, and so it is still standing when the unbending oak lies broken on the ground. Yielding is not the absence of strength. It is strength that has grown wise about where to spend itself. Think of how much of your day is spent bracing against things you cannot change. The traffic that will not move faster for your frustration, the weather that ignores your wishes, the past that will not rearrange itself no matter how hard you push against it in the dark. All that bracing is the rigidity of the oak, spending your strength against a wind that will pass anyway, leaving you broken and exhausted while the wind moves on untouched. Tonight, you can be the reed. There is a great deal in this day, in this life, that you cannot change, and against all of it, you have been rigidly bracing. Let the bracing go. Let yourself bend before the things you cannot move, not in defeat but in wisdom, letting them pass through and over you, while you spend nothing, resist nothing, break nothing. The wind of everything unresolved is blowing through the dark. Bow to it, softly, all the way down, and let it pass. In the morning, you will still be standing, because tonight you knew how to bend. Chapter 21. The argument you win by not having. The old master had little patience for cleverness and argument, for the sharp, competitive mind that must win every exchange and be right in every room. Those who know do not argue, he says, and those who argue do not know. And elsewhere, the sage does not contend, and therefore no one in the world can contend with them. There is a deep strategy hidden in that gentle line, though it does not look like strategy at all. Think of what it means to be unable to be contended with. Not because you have defeated everyone, but because you have simply stepped out of the contest altogether. The one who does not need to win cannot be beaten. The one who is not defending a position cannot have it taken. When you stop contending, you become like water, which cannot be struck or wounded or pushed off its ground, because it holds no rigid ground to be pushed off of. The fist closes on the water, and the water is unharmed, because it did not resist the fist. So much of our exhaustion is the exhaustion of contending, the endless silent arguments we rehearse, the need to be right, to have the last word, to defend the self against every slight and disagreement. We carry these contests to bed with us and continue them in the dark, arguing with people who are asleep in their own houses and have no idea the trial is still going on inside our heads. You may step out of the contest now, all of it. Every argument you are still silently winning or losing in your mind. You do not have to be right tonight. You do not have to defend your position, your version, your case. Lay down the whole exhausting need to contend and notice how, the moment you stop defending your ground, there is nothing left in you for the world to push against. The water is not defeated by the fist. It simply yields and closes again behind it, unharmed, at peace, contending with no one. Be the water. Let every argument end, not by winning, but by no longer needing to be had. Chapter 22. Enough. There is one word that stands near the center of the whole teaching, and it is a small and ordinary word. Enough. He who knows he has enough is rich, the old master says. Not the one who has the most. Not the one who has finally acquired the thing that was supposed to complete him, the one who knows in his bones that what he has is enough. That one is already rich tonight with exactly what is in his hands. We live in a great forgetting of this word. We are taught to want the next thing, and when we reach it, to want the thing beyond it, in an endless procession that never arrives at enough, because enough is not a quantity to be reached, but a decision to be made. No amount of having will ever produce the feeling of enough, because the feeling of enough does not come from having. It comes from a quiet turning of the heart that says, here, now, this is enough. And that turning can happen at any moment, including this one, regardless of how much or how little is in your hands. Consider softly what you actually have right now. You have a breath and then another one. You have a body that has carried you through the entire day and is holding you now. You have this quiet, this darkness, this moment of rest that so many across the centuries longed for and did not receive. You have, in this exact moment, everything you need to do the only thing that is being asked of you, which is to lie here and slowly let go. For this, you have more than enough. For this, you have always had enough. So let the wanting rest. The great restless engine of more, which has been running all day, driving you toward the next thing and the next, can be switched off for the night. There is nothing more to get before you are allowed to rest. There is nothing missing that must be acquired before you are complete enough to sleep. You are, right now, in possession of enough. Say the word to yourself, slowly, and feel it settle. Enough. Enough. It is the richest word there is, and it has been yours all along. Chapter 23. The Three Treasures. Near the heart of the old book, the master names three things he holds and guards, and he calls them his three treasures. They are not gold or power or knowledge. They are compassion, simplicity, and humility. The willingness to be kind, the willingness to want little, and the willingness not to push oneself ahead of others. Three soft things, three quiet things, and he says that from these three everything good in a life flows. Turn each one over gently as you lie here, not as a lesson to learn, but as a warmth to feel. Compassion first. The simple, soft turning of the heart toward what suffers, including the part of you that has suffered today, that tried too hard, that carried too much, that lies here now still tense with the effort of being a person. That part of you deserves your compassion tonight, not your judgment. Be kind to the one who is trying to fall asleep. Be kind to the one who is tired. Simplicity next. The willingness to want little, which is really the willingness to be content, to let the day be small and quiet and unremarkable, and to find in that smallness a deep sufficiency. You do not need a grand life to have a good one. The simple life, the small life, the life of few wants and quiet days, was the one the old master prized above all the glittering alternatives, because it is the one with room in it to breathe. And humility last. The willingness not to push ahead, not to climb over others, not to spend your one life straining to be first. There is such rest in stepping out of that race. In letting others go ahead, in taking the low and quiet place, in being, tonight, no one in particular, an ordinary soul at rest in the ordinary dark. Compassion, simplicity, humility, 3 soft treasures worth more than everything the hard world chases. Hold them lightly as you drift, and let their softness be the softness you fall asleep inside of. Chapter 24. Govern as you would cook a small fish. There is a line in the old book, so plain and strange that people have smiled at it for centuries. Govern a great state, the master says, as you would cook a small fish, that is all. He offers it without much explanation, the way he offers most things, and leaves you to feel your way into its meaning in the quiet. Anyone who has cooked a small, delicate fish knows the secret at once. You must barely touch it. If you poke it, turn it, fuss over it, keep flipping it to check whether it is done, it falls apart in the pan and is ruined. The only way to cook it well is to leave it mostly alone. To set the conditions, the gentle heat, the little time, and then to keep your restless hands away and let the fish become what it is going to become without your constant interference. He was speaking of how to lead a kingdom, but he might as well have been speaking of how to lead a life, or a mind, or an hour before sleep. So much of what we try to govern, we ruin by handling too much. The feeling we keep poking at to see if it has changed. The worry we keep turning over to check if it is done. The sleep we keep flipping and testing, asking every few minutes whether it has come yet, and by the asking, driving it away. The small fish of your rest cannot survive your constant handling. So take your hands out of the pan tonight. Set the gentle conditions, the dark, the quiet, the slow breath, and then leave your rest alone. Stop checking on it. Stop turning it over to see if it is working. Stop poking at your own mind to ask whether it has quieted enough yet. The most loving thing you can do for the small fish of your sleep is to stop touching it entirely and to trust the gentle heat of this quiet hour to finish it slowly, without your help, while your restless hands lie still at last. Chapter 25. The Journey of 1,000 Miles. Perhaps you have heard the most famous line in the whole book, even if you never knew where it came from. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. It has been repeated so often that it has worn smooth like a stone handled by too many hands, and we have almost stopped hearing what it actually says. But listen to it again in the quiet, slowly, because it is about far more than starting. We usually take it as a line about ambition, about how great things begin small, about getting yourself moving toward a distant goal. But the old master was not an ambitious man, and he did not mean it as encouragement to strive. He meant it as a description of how everything actually happens, never all at once. Never in the great leap we exhaust ourselves trying to make. Only ever one step, and then the next step, and then the one after that. Each one small, each one enough, each one the only step that is actually ours to take right now. The mind that cannot sleep is almost always a mind trying to walk the whole 1,000 miles at once. It stands at the beginning of some long, difficult road, a hard month, a hard recovery, a hard change, and it tries to feel, all in this single moment, the full weight of the entire distance. And of course it cannot bear it. No one can carry 1,000 miles at once. The whole road was never meant to be walked in a single night or felt in a single breath. You do not have to walk the 1,000 miles tonight. You do not even have to walk the next step tonight. Tonight, the only journey being asked of you is the journey into sleep. And it too begins with a single step. And the single step is this breath, this one, going out now, slowly. And then the next breath. That is the whole path from here to rest. Not 1,000 miles. Just the next soft breath, and then the one after it, each one carrying you a little further down into the dark, until, without ever having made the great leap, you find that you have arrived. Chapter 26. The space between the notes. Music is not made only of sound. Any musician will tell you that the silence between the notes is as much a part of the music as the notes themselves. Take away the pauses, the rests, the small silences that shape the phrases, and you are left not with more music, but with noise, an unbroken wall of sound that the ear cannot rest in or make sense of. The music lives in the spaces as much as in the sounds. The old master understood the world this way. He saw that the meaningful things are shaped by the empty things around them, that the sound is defined by the silence, the thing by the space, the effort by the rest that surrounds it. A life that is all notes and no rests is not a fuller life. It is only a noisier one, an unbroken wall of doing that the soul cannot rest in or make sense of. We fear the silences and rush to fill them, and in filling them, we destroy the very thing that would have made our days into music instead of noise. This hour is a rest in the music of your life. A held silence between the phrase of today and the phrase of tomorrow. And like all rests, it is not empty time to be endured or filled or hurried through. It is part of the music. It is doing something, this silence, the way the pause in a piece of music does something, giving shape to what came before and room to what comes next. Your rest tonight is not a gap in your real life. It is your real life, breathing. So let the silence be full. Let this held rest between the notes of your days be exactly what it is, unhurried, unfilled, complete in itself. You do not have to make a sound. You do not have to fill this quiet with thought or plan or worry. Be the rest between the notes. Be the silence that gives the music its shape. And in that silence, spacious and unhurried and whole, let yourself grow quiet enough to finally sleep. Chapter 27. Returning to the root. All things flourish, the old master says, and then each returns to its root. He watched the plants of the field grow up green and reaching in the spring and summer, striving upward toward the light, and then, in the autumn, he watched them let go of all that reaching and sink their life back down into the root, into the dark, quiet ground, to rest through the winter. And he did not see this returning as a sadness or a defeat. He saw it as the deepest wisdom in nature. To return to the root, he says, is to find peace. We honor only half of this cycle. We honor the growing, the reaching, the flourishing upward, and we treat the returning, the letting go, the sinking back down into rest as if it were merely the absence of the good part. But the plant knows better. The plant knows that the returning is not the opposite of the flourishing, but its completion, that without the long dark rest in the root, there could be no green rising in the spring, that the sinking down is where the strength for the next reaching is quietly gathered. Each night you return to your root. All day you have been the green reaching plant, growing outward, striving upward, spending yourself toward the light of 100 tasks and hopes. And now the autumn of the day has come, and it is time to let the reaching go, to draw your life back down out of the branches and into the quiet, dark ground of sleep, where the roots are, where the peace is, where the strength for tomorrow's reaching is even now being silently gathered while you rest. Feel yourself returning now. Feel the day's long reaching begin to withdraw, the energy that went out into the world all day drawing back down into the dark, quiet root of you. There is nothing to hold up any longer. There is nothing to reach toward. It is the hour of return, the hour of sinking back into the ground of yourself. And to return to the root, the old master promises, is to find peace. Sink into your root now and find it. Chapter 28. The softness of the newborn. The old master had a strange and tender admiration for the newborn, for the infant so soft it can barely hold up its own head, and he held it up again and again as an image of a kind of strength we spend our whole lives forgetting. A person is born soft and weak, he says, and dies stiff and hard. Plants are born tender and pliant, and die brittle and dry. The soft and yielding belong to life. The stiff and hard belong to death. We spend our years growing harder. It begins as protection, a shell laid down over old wounds, a rigidity that once kept us safe, and slowly, without noticing, we become the stiff, hard thing the old master warns against, braced against the world, tight in the jaw and tight in the shoulders and tight in the heart, mistaking our hardness for strength, when it is really only the beginning of the brittleness that all hard things come to. But the softness is not gone. It is only covered. Underneath the shell you have laid down over the years, there is still the soft, yielding aliveness you were born with, the pliancy that belongs to living things, and it is still in there, waiting the way the sap is still in the tree beneath the winter bark. And at night, in the dark, in the safety of your own quiet, some of the hardness can be allowed to soften back down toward what you were before you learned to brace. Let it soften now. Feel wherever you are still hard, still braced, still shelled against the day, and let those places grow tender again, pliant again, soft again, the way you were when you were new and had not yet learned to armor yourself. There is no danger here that requires your hardness. You are safe enough tonight to be soft. And in that softness, that returning tenderness, that letting go of the long, brittle bracing of the years, you draw close again to life, to sleep, to the yielding aliveness you never really lost. Chapter 29. The Uncarved Block. There is an image the old master loved above almost all others, and it is a humble one. He called it the Uncarved Block, a piece of raw wood or uncut stone before the craftsman's tools have touched it. Plain, simple, whole, not yet shaped into anything in particular, and holding within it, precisely because it has not yet been carved, the possibility of anything at all. He returns to this image whenever he wants to point at a state of natural simplicity, at the mind before it complicates itself, at the self before it becomes 100 separate carved intentions. The moment you carve the block into a bowl, it can only ever be a bowl. The moment you carve it into a spoon, the spoon is all it can be. The carving gives it a use, but it takes away its wholeness, its openness, its quiet, undivided completeness. And the old master, who was suspicious of all our frantic shaping and improving and refining, saw in the uncarved block a kind of peace that the finished object has lost, to be whole and simple and not yet cut into pieces by purpose. All day you are carved. The day takes the whole simple block of you and cuts it into 100 functions. The one who answers this, the one who handles that, the one who must be this for these people and that for those. By evening you can feel it, the sense of having been cut into too many pieces, shaped and reshaped by a dozen demands, until you are not sure any longer where the whole simple block of you even went. Tonight the carving stops. In sleep you are returned to the uncarved block. Not the worker, not the parent, not the one who must be a dozen useful shapes for a dozen demanding hands. Just the whole plain, simple wholeness of you before the day's tools touched it, undivided and complete. Let the carving of the day fall away and settle back into the uncarved block you have been underneath it all along. Whole, simple, untouched. At peace precisely because, for these few dark hours, you do not have to be shaped into anything at all. Chapter 30. The bright path that looks dark. The old master delighted in things that seemed to be their own opposite, and he collected them like a man gathering smooth stones. The bright path seems dark, he says. Moving forward seems like retreat. The easy way seems hard. The greatest fullness seems empty. He gathers these seeming contradictions not to confuse you, but to loosen the grip of the mind that insists everything must be one obvious way, because he knew that the deepest truths almost always wear the mask of their opposite. Consider how often, in your own life, the bright path has looked dark at the time you were walking it. The setback that turned out to be a redirection towards something better. The loss that made room for what you could not have received with full hands. The hard season that, looking back, was where the most quiet growing happened. At the time, each of these looked like the wrong way, the dark way, the backward step. Only later did it show itself as the bright path it secretly was. This is worth remembering in the dark, when the mind wants to judge the day, or the season, or the whole shape of a life, and to declare it wrong, off course, going backward. You cannot actually see from inside a single night which way any of it is finally going. The path that feels like retreat may be the very one moving you forward. The dark stretch you are in may be the bright path wearing its usual disguise. You do not have to judge it tonight. You do not have to decide whether it is all going wrong. You cannot see far enough from here to know. So set down the judging. Set down the anxious accounting of whether your life is on the right path or the wrong one, moving forward or falling behind. From inside this one dark night you cannot possibly tell, and the old master would gently say, you do not need to. Trust that the path knows where it goes, even when it looks like dark, even when it feels like retreat. Stop trying to see the whole road in the dark. Close your eyes on the not knowing, and let the bright path carry you, disguised as darkness, exactly where it has always been quietly taking you. Chapter 31 of The Full Vessel Spills. We touched this already, softly, but it is worth returning to slowly, because it is one of the oldest warnings in the book and one of the most useful for a tired mind. To hold and fill a vessel to the very brim, the master says, is not as good as to stop in time. Keep filling, keep adding, keep pushing past the point of fullness, and all you accomplish is the spill, the overflow, the loss of the very thing you were trying to keep. The overfull day spills. You have felt it. The day so crammed with doing that nothing in it could be held or savoured, that the very fullness became a kind of emptiness, because none of it could be received. The overfull mind spills too, the mind so packed with thought and plan and stimulation that it can no longer hold a single thing, that lies awake precisely because it was filled past the point where rest was possible. Past a certain line, more is not more. Past a certain line, more is only spilling. The wisdom is to stop before the brim, to leave a little room in the vessel, a little emptiness at the top, a little unfilled space where the day can settle without overflowing. A cup left a little empty can be carried without spilling. A cup filled to the very edge spills at the first small movement. The room you leave unfilled is not waste. It is what makes the fullness usable, carryable, restful, instead of precarious. Leave your vessel a little empty tonight. Do not try to fill this last hour with one more thing, one more thought resolved, one more worry worked through to its end. Let there be unfilled space at the top of the day, a little emptiness left over, a little room where the fullness can settle without spilling into the wide-awake dark. You do not have to fill it all. You were never meant to. Stop a little short of the brim, and in that small, deliberate emptiness, that unfilled quiet at the top of the vessel of your day, let yourself finally come to rest. Chapter 32. He who stands on tiptoe. Come back with me one more time to the image of the person standing on tiptoe, because it is such a perfect small picture of everything that keeps us from rest, and the old master clearly loved it, returning to it more than once. He who stands on tiptoe is not steady. He who takes long strides does not walk far. The overreach, the strain, the pushing past one's natural stance always ends the same way, in unsteadiness and early exhaustion. Watch, in your mind, a person standing on tiptoe, straining upward to reach or to see or to seem taller than they are. Notice how much effort it takes just to hold the pose. The whole body tightens. The calves burn. The balance grows precarious, and it cannot last. Sooner or later, the heels must come down, and when they do, there is a flood of relief, a settling, a return of the whole body to the solid ground it was straining above. The relief of coming down off tiptoe is one of the small, deep pleasures of the body, and almost no one gives themselves enough of it. Most of us are on tiptoe most of the time, reaching for the thing just out of reach, straining to be a little more than we are, to hold a little higher position, to see a little further than our natural height allows. We do it so constantly that we forget we are doing it, forget that our whole life is being lived in a state of low straining that never quite lets the heels touch down, and we wonder why we are so tired. We are tired because we have been standing on tiptoe for years. Let your heels come down now. Feel in your whole body the release of coming off the endless tiptoe of your effort, the settling of your full weight back onto the solid ground that was always there beneath you. You do not have to reach for anything tonight. You do not have to strain upward to be more than you are. Come down off your toes, all the way down, and let your full ordinary weight rest on the ground, steady and low and finally, blessedly at ease. Chapter 33. He who knows does not speak. One who knows does not speak, the old master says, and one who speaks does not know. It is one of his sharpest lines, and it has a gentle sting in it for anyone who has spent their life explaining, justifying, and putting things into words. He was pointing at a simple observation. The people who most deeply understand a thing are usually the quietest about it, while those who understand it least are often the loudest. But there is a softer meaning too, and it is the one to carry into sleep. Some things are known in a way that words cannot reach, and the effort to force them into speech only breaks them. The taste of water, the feeling of the sun on the skin, the love you have for someone, which the words never quite hold. These are known directly, wordlessly, in a place beneath language, and when we try to drag them up into speech, we find that most of them are left behind in the lifting. The mind that cannot sleep is very often a mind still talking, still narrating, still turning every experience into words and sentences and explanations. It cannot stop speaking, even silently, even to itself, and the endless inner speech is a kind of low, steady effort that keeps the whole system running when it should be powering down. To fall asleep is, in part, to stop talking to yourself, to let the narrator finally fall silent, to let things be known, if they are known at all, in the wordless way, without the constant effort of putting them into sentences. Let the inner voice grow quiet now, not by force, which never works, but by simply no longer feeding it, no longer following each sentence to its end, no longer answering it or arguing with it or asking it to explain. The one who knows does not speak, and the one who is falling asleep does not narrate. Let the words thin out and slow down and fall away until what is left is only the wordless knowing, the quiet beneath language, where sleep has been waiting all along for the talking to finally stop. Chapter 34. The weak outlasts the strong. In all the world, the old master says, there is nothing softer or weaker than water, and yet, for attacking things that are hard and strong, there is nothing that can surpass it. He says this almost with wonder, as if he never tired of the paradox. The weakest thing defeats the strongest. The soft overcomes the hard. Everyone knows this, he adds, and yet no one is able to practice it. We know that the yielding outlasts the rigid, and still we keep choosing to be rigid. Why is it so hard to practice? Because the victory of the soft is slow, and we are impatient, and in the short view, the hard thing always seems to be winning. In any single moment, the rock defeats the water. The rock sits there, solid and unmoved, while the water flows helplessly around it. If you watched for only an hour, you would conclude the rock had won for good. It is only across the long, patient stretch of time that the water reveals its quiet mastery, wearing the rock down, carrying it away grain by grain, outlasting what could never be overpowered. There is comfort in this for everyone who feels weak against the hard facts of their life, the hard diagnosis, the hard circumstance, the hard, unyielding problem that will not move no matter how you push against it. In the short view, the hard thing is winning. But you are not required to win in the short view. You are allowed to be water, to yield in the moment while enduring across the years, to flow softly around what you cannot move, and to trust the long, slow patience that wears down even mountains. You do not have to be strong tonight. You do not have to be hard or solid or unmoved. Those are the qualities of the rock, and the rock, for all its strength, is the thing that slowly wears away. Be the water instead. Be soft, be yielding, be weak in the way that outlasts all strength. Flow around the hard edges of the day without striking them. And trust that the softness you sink into tonight is not weakness at all, but the quiet, enduring power that outlasts everything that was ever too hard to move. Chapter 35. Muddy water, left alone, grows clear. Here is one of the most useful images in the whole book for a restless mind, and the old master offers it as a question: who can make muddy water clear? And then he answers his own question with a single quiet instruction: leave it alone, and it will slowly become clear on its own. Stop stirring, and the mud will settle. Stop reaching in to fix it, and the water will do what water does, which is to grow clear the moment it is left in peace. Think of how we usually try to clear a troubled mind. We reach into the muddy water and we stir. We poke at the worry to examine it. We churn the problem over and over, turning it this way and that, convinced that if we just work the mud hard enough, it will somehow resolve. But you cannot clear muddy water by stirring it. The stirring is the very thing keeping it cloudy. Every reach of the hand, every churn of the thought lifts the settling mud back up into the water and keeps the whole thing dark and troubled. The mind clears the same way the water does, not by effort, but by the absence of effort, not by stirring, but by stillness. When you finally stop reaching in to fix and examine and resolve, the churned-up mud of the day begins, all on its own, to settle. The thoughts that were suspended and swirling begin to drift downward and come to rest. And the water that seemed hopelessly cloudy grows slowly, quietly clear, revealing that it was never really dirty, only disturbed. So stop stirring now. Take your hands out of the water of your own mind. Stop reaching in to examine the worries, to churn the problems, to work the mud of the day. Just leave it alone. Let it be still, and watch, without watching too hard, as the muddy water of your thoughts begins to settle all by itself, the way it always does when it is finally left in peace, growing clearer and quieter and stiller, until what remains is only clear, dark water, and the deep, settled calm of a mind that has stopped disturbing itself at last. Chapter 36. The door you need not force. A good traveller, the old master says, leaves no tracks. A good door needs no bolt, and yet it cannot be opened. A good binding uses no rope, and yet it cannot be untied. He is pointing, in his roundabout way, at a kind of rightness that needs no force to hold it. A rightness so natural that it stays shut, or stays tied, or stays true without any straining at all. The best door is not the one held closed by the strongest bolt. It is the one that simply rests closed because that is its nature. We force so many of our doors. We hold things shut by main strength, by willpower, by constant vigilance, terrified that if we relaxed our grip for even a moment, everything would swing open and fall apart. And this forcing is exhausting precisely because it never ends. The bolt must be watched, the rope must be checked. The forced thing is never finally secure, because it is held only by the pressure we keep applying, and the moment we tire, it gives way. But there is another way for things to hold, not by force, but by rightness. The door that is simply closed because it is a door. The trust that holds without a contract. The love that stays without being made to stay. The sleep that comes without being forced. These are the good doors that need no bolt, the good bindings that need no rope, held not by straining but by their own natural way of being, and so they can be relaxed into completely, because they do not depend on your constant effort to hold them shut. Sleep is a door you cannot force, and do not need to. You have perhaps been trying to bolt it shut behind you to force yourself through it by strength of will, and you have found, as everyone finds, that the harder you push the door of sleep, the more firmly it holds against you. So stop forcing the door. Let it be a good door, one that needs no bolt, that opens in its own time and its own way when you have finally stopped straining at the handle. Take your hand off it, trust the door to open on its own. And in the meantime, rest against it, quiet and unforcing, until it swings softly open of its own accord. Chapter 37. Letting the world do its own work. The old master had an unshakable trust in the natural competence of things. He believed deeply that the world knew how to run itself, that the seasons did not need to be managed, that the crops did not need to be commanded to grow, that heaven and earth had been quietly doing their vast work long before human beings arrived to worry about it, and would go on doing it long after. The way, he says, does nothing, and yet nothing is left undone. The doing takes care of itself. We do not trust this. We have come to believe that if we stopped managing, stopped worrying, stopped holding the whole thing together with our constant attention, it would all fall apart. And so we lie awake, managing the future by rehearsing it, managing the past by reviewing it. Managing people who are asleep and problems that are not even present, as if our worrying were the invisible force holding the world in its orbit, as if the sun might forget to rise if we did not lie here, anxiously reminding it. But the world does not need your management tonight. This is one of the great quiet truths that the old master keeps offering. The vast, competent doing of things will go on perfectly well without your supervision. The earth will turn. The tides will move. The bodies of the people you love will breathe in their sleep without your watching. The problems will still be there in the morning, exactly as manageable then as now, and no less solvable for your having rested. Your worrying holds nothing together. It only holds you apart from sleep. So, hand the world back to itself for the night. Let it do its own enormous work without you for these few dark hours. You are not the one keeping it all running. You never were. The doing was always taking care of itself, and it will keep taking care of itself while you sleep, competent and vast and utterly indifferent to whether you are awake to worry about it. Set down the management of the universe. It was never your job. Let the world run itself tonight and rest. Chapter 38. The quiet after wanting. Most of the noise in a human mind is the noise of wanting. Wanting this, avoiding that, reaching toward the pleasant and pushing away the unpleasant. A constant low churn of preference and desire that never entirely stops. The old master saw wanting as the root of much of our unrest, not because wanting is wicked, but because the wanting mind can never be at peace, since there is always something more to want, always some gap between how things are and how the wanting wishes they were. He speaks of a state he calls having few desires, and he does not mean a grim renunciation, a joyless stripping away of all pleasure. He means something lighter and easier than that. A loosening of the grip of wanting, a willingness to let things be as they are without immediately reaching to make them otherwise. The peace, he suggests, is not in getting everything you want. The peace is in the quiet that comes when the wanting itself relaxes, when for a moment you stop reaching and things are simply allowed to be exactly as they are. Notice, tonight, how even now the wanting continues. The wish for sleep to come faster. The wish for the day to have gone differently. The wish for the body to be more comfortable. The room to be more quiet. The mind to be more still. Each of these is a small reaching, a small refusal to let this moment be as it is. And each one, however gentle, keeps the churn of wanting turning when it could be slowing to a stop. For these few hours, you can want nothing, not even sleep, especially not even sleep. you can let this moment be exactly as it is, the body as it is, the room as it is, the mind as it is, with nothing reached for and nothing pushed away. And in that rare quiet after wanting, that soft cessation of the endless reaching, something settles that no amount of getting could ever settle. Let the wanting grow quiet. Let this moment be enough exactly as it is, and rest in the deep, still peace that lives on the far side of desire. Chapter 39. Nothing to prove before sleep. Somewhere along the way, most of us picked up the idea that rest must be earned, that we are only allowed to stop once we have done enough, proven enough, justified our existence through sufficient effort and output and use. And so, even our sleep becomes something we feel we must deserve, and we lie awake running the accounts of the day, checking whether we did enough to have earned the right to rest. But the old master would gently dismantle this whole arrangement. In his vision, worth is not earned through striving. The valley is not worthy because of what it accomplished. The water is not valuable because of how hard it worked. The uncarved block has its quiet completeness before it has been made into anything useful at all. Being, in his teaching, comes before doing, and rest does not have to be justified by the effort that preceded it. You do not have to prove that you deserve to sleep. Consider how strange it is, when you look at it plainly, to demand that a tired body justify its need for rest. The body does not ask permission to heal. The lungs do not earn the right to breathe. And you do not have to have done enough today to be allowed to lie down and let go tonight. Your worth was never in the doing. It was there before the day began, in the simple fact of your being, whole and sufficient and requiring no proof. The way the valley is worthy simply by being a valley. So set down the accounts. Stop tallying whether you did enough today to have earned this rest. There is nothing to prove before sleep. You are allowed to stop, even if the day was small, even if much was left undone, even if you accomplished nothing at all that could be written down and counted. Rest is not a wage paid out for sufficient effort. It is your birthright, as it is the birthright of every living thing, and it is yours tonight regardless of what you did or did not do. Lie down in that permission. You have nothing to prove. You never did. Just rest. Chapter 40. The breath that does not grasp. Return your attention softly to your breathing, and notice something the old master pointed to again and again. The breath, when it is left alone, does not grasp. It takes what it needs and lets the rest go. It fills and empties and fills again, holding nothing, keeping nothing, clinging to no single breath as if it were the last. The whole rhythm of breathing is a rhythm of receiving and releasing, taking in and letting go, and it works only because it never tries to hold on. Imagine if the breath grasped. If, having taken in a breath, it refused to let it go, clinging to the fullness, afraid of the emptiness that comes after. You would suffocate on your own held breath within a minute. It is only the willingness to release, to let each breath go completely and empty out into nothing that makes room for the next one to come. The letting go is not the loss of breathing. The letting go is what allows the breathing to continue. Grasping would be death. Releasing is life. Your whole life breathes this way, or wants to. Taking in and letting go. Receiving the day and releasing it. Holding the people and the moments and the seasons for their time, and then, when their time is done, opening the hands and letting them move on, the way the breath lets go of the air it held so completely a moment ago. All our suffering, the old master might say, is the suffering of the breath that will not exhale, the grasp that will not open, the holding on past the natural time of letting go. Let your breathing teach you now. Follow it softly, and especially follow the letting go, the long, slow release of each exhale, the emptying out into nothing that makes room for what comes next. With each out-breath, let something of the day go with it, released completely, held onto no longer. You do not have to keep any of it. Breathe it in and let it go. Breathe the day in and let the day go. And let each releasing breath carry you a little deeper into the soft, dark rest that only the ungrasping hand can enter. Chapter 41. The field left fallow. The old farmers knew something we have nearly forgotten. A field cannot be planted forever. Push it to produce season after season without rest, and slowly the soil goes thin and the harvests grow poor, until at last the exhausted ground gives almost nothing at all. And so the wise farmer every so often does something that looks like waste to the impatient eye. He leaves the field fallow. He plants nothing. He lets it rest, empty and quiet, for a whole season. And in that resting, the soil quietly rebuilds the richness that constant use had drained away. The old master would have loved the fallow field, because it is wu-wei made visible in the soil. The farmer does nothing, and the ground restores itself. He does not work the fallow field. He does not force it or improve it or drive it toward production. He simply lets it lie, and the letting lie is the whole of the work. And it is the most important work of all, because without it, every other season would slowly fail. You are a field, and you cannot be planted forever either. All the productive seasons of your effort, all the constant demand to yield and produce and give, draw down something in you that only rest can rebuild. And a night of sleep is a fallow season for the soul. It looks, to the impatient part of you, like waste, like empty, unproductive hours that could be spent doing something. But it is the opposite of waste. It is the quiet season in which the richness of you is rebuilt, the season without which every other season would slowly fail. So let yourself lie fallow tonight. Plant nothing, produce nothing, demand no yield from yourself in these dark hours. Let the field of you rest completely, empty and quiet and unworked, trusting that in this apparent doing of nothing, something essential is being restored, some richness rebuilt that only the fallow season can rebuild. You do not have to be productive tonight. You have to be fallow. and the fallow field, resting in the dark, is doing the most important work there is. Chapter 42. The way home is downhill. There is an ease to going home that going out never has. When you set out in the morning, you climb. You gather yourself, you brace, you push uphill against the day, spending energy to rise into all that must be done. But the way home, at the end, is different. The way home is downhill. You do not have to push anymore. You only have to let yourself descend, to let gravity and tiredness carry you down toward rest, the way a stream that has reached the top of its climbing turns and runs easily down toward the sea. The old master understood the whole of life as a kind of returning, a going home, a descent back toward the source from which everything came. Returning, he says, is the movement of the way. Not the reaching out, though there is a time for that, but the coming back, the flowing home, the easy downhill return to the quiet ground of things. And he saw this return not as an ending to be feared, but as the most natural motion there is, the motion of the river toward the sea, of the leaf toward the earth, of the tired body toward its rest. You are on the way home now. The long uphill climb of the day is behind you. You do not have to push anymore. You do not have to spend yourself rising into anything. The only motion left tonight is the downhill motion, the descent, the easy letting go of a body and mind flowing home toward rest. And downhill, you do not have to work. You only have to stop resisting the descent, to let go of the uphill bracing that the day required, and to let yourself be carried down. Feel the downhill ease of it now. Feel how you do not have to climb towards sleep, do not have to push up into it or strain to reach it. Sleep is downhill from here. It is the low place all your tiredness is already flowing toward. Stop holding yourself up on the hillside of the day. Let go and let the gentle downhill motion of the night carry you, easily, without effort, all the way home. Chapter 43. What remains when effort ends? We have spent this whole long night loosening the grip of effort, and now, near the end, it is worth asking softly what is actually left when the effort stops. We are so afraid, sometimes, to stop trying, because we suspect that our trying is the only thing holding us together, that beneath the effort there is nothing or chaos or collapse. But the old master found the opposite. He found that beneath the effort there is not nothing. Beneath the effort there is the way, the quiet, competent flow of things, which was there all along, holding everything, including you, whether or not you were straining to help. When the effort ends, the breathing does not stop. It goes on quietly, as it always has, without your management. When the effort ends, the heart does not stop. It beats on in the dark, faithful and unforced. When the effort ends, the world does not fall apart. It continues, vast and self-sustaining, exactly as it did before you were born and will after you are gone. What remains when your effort ends is not emptiness. What remains is everything that was never yours to hold up in the first place, revealed at last, now that you have stopped straining to hold it. This is the deep discovery at the center of the whole teaching, and it can only be found by actually letting go, never by being told. That underneath the frantic effort of the self, there is a ground that does not need the effort that was holding you the entire time you thought you were holding yourself. The swimmer, exhausted, finally stops thrashing and discovers that the water was buoyant all along, that it will hold a still body far more easily than a struggling one, that the floating was always available beneath the drowning. Stop thrashing now. Let the effort end, all of it, completely, and discover what remains. Not emptiness, not collapse, but the quiet, buoyant ground that was holding you the whole time, that needs none of your straining, that will hold your still and resting body far more easily than it ever held your struggling one. Let go of the last of the effort and feel yourself held by what was there beneath it all along. Chapter 44. The Old Sage at the Western Gate. Let us return, as the night deepens, to the old story of how the Master left the world, because it is a gentle thing to fall asleep inside of. He had grown old. He had seen enough of the striving kingdom, enough of the grasping and the forcing and the endless human refusal to leave things alone. And so, the story says, he mounted a water buffalo, that slow and patient beast, and he rode west toward the mountains, toward the fading light, meaning simply to disappear into the quiet. Picture it softly. The old man on the slow animal, unhurried, in no distress, moving toward the western gate as the sun goes down behind the mountains. He is not fleeing, he is not afraid, he is only going home. The way the light goes home at the end of the day, the way the river goes home to the sea. There is a great peace in the picture, the peace of a life that has finished its work and is now, without drama or resistance, simply letting itself return to the quiet from which it came. At the gate, the guard asked him for his teaching, and he paused long enough to write it down, and then he passed through and was gone, folded back into the mist of the mountains, leaving no tracks, exactly as a good traveller should. No one knows what became of him, no one knows where he went or how his life ended. He simply passed through the gate at evening and dissolved into the west. And the not knowing is itself a kind of teaching, a last soft lesson in letting go of even the need to know how the story ends. You are passing through a gate tonight too, the gentle gate between waking and sleep, and you can pass through it the way the old master passed through his, unhurried, unafraid. Not fleeing anything, only going home, letting yourself return to the quiet from which each day comes and to which each night returns. Let the light go down behind the mountains. Let the slow, patient animal carry you west toward the gate, and when you reach it, do not resist. Pass through softly and let yourself dissolve into the mist on the far side, leaving no tracks, needing to know nothing, simply gone into the peace of it. Chapter 45. Passing through without a trace. A good traveller leaves no tracks. We heard the line before, but now, this close to sleep, let it mean the simplest thing of all: to move through the world lightly. To pass through this night without needing to leave a mark on it, without needing to make it into anything, without needing it to have been productive or meaningful or worthy of remembering. Just to pass through lightly, the way the wind passes through the grass, the way the water passes through the valley, leaving it exactly as it was found. So much of our striving is the striving to leave tracks, to be remembered, to matter, to have made a difference the world can see, to leave behind some proof that we were here. And there is nothing wrong with a life that touches other lives. But the old master saw that the anxious need to leave tracks is its own kind of suffering, a grasping after permanence in a world made entirely of flow, and that the deepest peace belongs to those who can move through their days lightly, touching much and gripping nothing, passing through without a trace. Tonight, you do not have to leave any tracks at all. This night asks nothing of you but to be passed through gently. You do not have to remember it. You do not have to make it count. You do not have to wake in the morning able to show what these hours produced. They are allowed to vanish completely, like tracks smoothed over by the wind, like a dream you do not recall, leaving behind only the quiet fact of a body rested and a mind made clear. Pass through this night without a trace. Let the hours carry you and leave no mark, no accounting, no proof. Let yourself be a good traveler, moving lightly through the dark, touching the night gently and gripping none of it, needing it to become nothing, needing to remember none of it. And in that lightness, that traceless passing, that gentle unmarked movement through the dark, let yourself drift further and further down toward the deep place where even the traveler dissolves, and there is only rest. Chapter 46. The weight you set down. Imagine for a moment a person who has carried a heavy load for a very long way. All day the load has been on their back, and they have grown so used to its weight that they have almost forgotten they are carrying it. And then, at last, they reach the place of rest, and they set the load down. And in the moment of setting it down, there is a rush of lightness so sudden and so complete that the body almost floats, almost cannot believe how heavy the thing was until the instant it is gone. You have been carrying a load. Everyone has. The weight of the responsibilities, the weight of the worries. The weight of the person you have to be, the standards you have to meet, the outcomes you have to secure, the whole heavy pack of a life lived in effort and vigilance and care. You have carried it so long, you have half forgotten it is there. But it is there, and it is heavy, and tonight, at last, you have reached the place where it can be set down. The old master's whole teaching is, in a sense, one long invitation to set the load down, to discover that most of what we carry we were never required to carry, that we picked it up out of fear and habit and the belief that we alone were responsible for holding up our corner of the world, and to feel the rush of lightness that comes when the load is finally released, when the shoulders that braced for so long are finally allowed to drop, when the weight rolls off and the body, unburdened, almost floats. Set it down now, all of it, the whole heavy pack of the day, of the week, of the long stretch of effort you have been carrying without rest. Feel your shoulders release the weight they have braced against for so long. Feel the rush of lightness as the load rolls off, as the muscles that held it finally let go, as the body, unburdened at last, grows so light it seems almost to float on the surface of the dark. You have carried it far enough. You can set it down now. and in the sudden lightness of the load released, sink softly, gratefully, into rest. Chapter 47. The last thing the water says. We have followed the water all night, from the high streams to the low sea, and now, at the very end, let it say its last quiet thing to you. The water does not worry about where it is going. It has never once, in all the ages of the world, been anxious about reaching the sea. It simply flows, following the low places, yielding to every obstacle, taking the shape of whatever holds it, and by this endless soft yielding it arrives, without fail, exactly where it was always going to arrive. The water trusts the way. That is its whole secret. It trusts the way completely, and so it is never afraid. You can trust the way too. You have spent your life, perhaps, believing that everything depended on your effort, that if you did not push and strain and force and manage, it would all go wrong. And tonight, the water offers you the opposite faith, that beneath your effort there is a way, a current, a flow of things that knows where it is going, that has been carrying you the whole time, that will keep carrying you, whether or not you struggle. You can stop struggling now. You can let the way carry you, the way it carries the water, softly, surely, home. This is the last thing the water says, and it says it without words, in the quiet language of its endless yielding flow. Do not be afraid. Do not grasp. Do not force. Let go and be carried. The way that carried the old master west into the mountains, the way that carries the rivers to the sea, the way that has carried every tired soul across every dark night since the beginning, is carrying you now, softly in the dark, exactly where you need to go. So loosen the last of your holding. Let the last effort dissolve. Let yourself become like the water, trusting the way completely, yielding to everything, resisting nothing, flowing softly down and down toward the deep, low place of rest. There is nothing left to do. There is nothing left to force. There is only the current carrying you and the deep, dark peace toward which it has been carrying you all along. Let it take you now. Let go and be carried all the way down into sleep. Chapter 48. Sleep now. There is nothing left to understand. There is nothing left to hold. The whole long night has been one slow loosening of the grip, one gentle teaching of the single truth that runs beneath it all, that the softest thing overcomes the hardest, that the low place is where everything gathers, that the way does nothing, and yet nothing is left undone, that you do not have to force or strain or push or prove or manage or hold the world together with your effort. You only have to let go and be carried. So let go now, completely. Let the last thought drift off, unfinished. Let the last worry settle to the bottom like mud in still water. Let the breath breathe itself, slow and soft and unforced. Let your whole weight sink down into the low place, the resting place, the quiet, dark ground toward which everything in you has been flowing all night long. There is nothing more for you to do. There has been nothing to do for a long while now. Only this. Only the letting go. Only the soft downhill drift into rest. You are like water now, yielding, formless, at peace, holding nothing, forcing nothing, trusting the way to carry you home. The day is behind you, set down like a heavy pack you no longer have to carry. The effort is over, the trying has stopped. And in the deep quiet that remains when the trying stops, there is room, at last, for the oldest and simplest rest there is. The river has reached the sea, the traveller has passed through the gate, the field lies fallow in the dark, the load is set down. There is nothing left but the soft, deep, endless quiet, and you dissolving gently into it, carried by a way that has never once failed to bring the tired home. Rest now, let go now, sleep now,